Today, we are going to look at from the life of Joshua, the last book of Joshua, and what he's trying to tell us to you and to me in a very special way, especially we are coming just out of, coming very close to coming out of pandemic. And we look back and see what God has done in our lives. And Joshua did similar thing. As he comes to the end of his life, he's about to call home, and he is calling the whole nation to come and ask him to make a commitment. So we call it a call to action. Joshua has been an action man. So that's why I always like Joshua. I enjoy reading the book of Joshua. It's always action. And he does so many things. As we all know, when Moses died, God has ordained Joshua to move move the people of Israel to the promised land. So let's move to the next slide, Andrew. So I just want to give you an introduction of what this book is all about and what he's trying to say. The next slide. So he's talking about the purpose. In Joshua chapter 3, verse 14, he says, "My days are coming. I am about to go the way of all the earth." That means his days are numbered. He's about to leave. And I just want to let you know, I'm just paraphrasing the rest of it. I just want to let you know what God has done in the past to you and to everybody. He always kept his promise. Nothing has been failed. So that is the purpose of this meeting that he's going to have. And where he had this meeting, in Joshua chapter 24, verse 1 says, Joshua assembled all the people of Israel at Shechem. Now, Shechem is a very important place. I just want to pause and understand what that means. Shechem is where God has met Abraham the very first time. Abraham, after he left his land of Haran, he met him at Shechem and made a covenant with him. He blessed him and said, "I will bless you, and I will bless your offspring, and they will be blessed." That's what it says, right? In Genesis chapter 12, verse 6 to 7 says, Abraham traveled through the land of as far as sight of the great tree of Morah at Shechem. At that time, Canaanites were living in that land. Go to the next verse. And the Lord appeared and he blessed him. "I will bless you. This land is yours." However, if you continue to read Genesis, in Genesis 15, he says, "But I will bring your people to this land after fourth generation, not maybe, fourth generation." So it took 500 years now. Joshua and the people of Israel are in that land. Now, I also want to mention that is on the screen that Shechem is another important place for Jacob. And Jacob brought his household and asked them to recommit themselves, throw all their foreign gods and recommit themselves. This also happened in Shechem. If you go to verse 4, it says, so he brought and it happened at Shechem. So Shechem has been an important place where, number one, God has made the covenant with Abraham, and Jacob came and done the rededication at Shechem. And now the people of Israel are here with Joshua, and now the land has been given to God's people as God has promised to Abraham. And he's asking the people to rededicate themselves. So that's what's happening there. So that's what we looked at the purpose, looked at where they are met, and who were there in that meeting. If you go to verse 2, 24 verse 2, Joshua said to all the people, so everybody were called to Shechem. So that's exactly what it is. He brought everyone, all the 12 tribes, leaders, spiritual leaders, everybody were called in that place. So that is what we are seeing. So this is the introduction I want to give so you can understand the landscape of this meeting. So there'll be millions of people there. And I assume in the middle, Joshua stood up and started talking to the people. And he was 110 years old, a well-ripe age, and he's talking. So that is what the landscape is. So now what was the theme of this this message is that Joshua is giving to his people is call to action. You need to make a choice. So for them to make the choice, Joshua is explaining the faithfulness of God, how faithfully God has blessed and guided you all the way up until today. That's what he's trying to say. It's the faithfulness of God. And the second part, freedom of choice. Here is the choice you have. What do you want to do at this juncture? You have seen your Lord. You have seen his faithfulness. Now it is your turn to make a decision. And it's always decision making is all God has given us the freedom of choice. He never pushes us to make the decision. He always be there, but we have to make the decision. So the freedom of choice. So let's do this in 2 points through this chapter. So the first one, faithfulness of God. From Joshua 24, 2-4, I may not read everything, I may paraphrase it, even though the word might be on the screen. So he is talking about how God has formed the nation Israel. As you know, Abraham's ancestors, as you see on the screen, they were pagan worshippers. They were beyond the river of Euphrates. That's where they were living. That was one of the first human civilization started. Or he was living in a very affluent society, Abraham. But he was a pagan worshipper. His fathers were worshiping so many other gods. And God has chosen Abraham and asked him to worship the Jehovah God, the one and only God, the one and only true God. And when Abraham received this call, Abraham never second guessed anything. He completely trusted God and he followed him. Well, the next verse, what verse 4? And so not only Abraham, now you can see Abraham was blessed by Isaac, and then we know Jacob and Esau, they were blessed. So now the family is growing, and God has chosen someone living in Mesopotamia, a man called Abraham, to form a nation of Israel. Now let's do a comparison. We lived in different parts of the world and different walks of life, and God has chosen us. Now we are not righteous people to understand and pick God. He chose us. And he had given his life to us by choosing us. So that is the first thing that, the bit good, same comparison we can see between what happened in the life of Joshua's time as what is happening in the New Testament for believers like you and me. God has chosen us, not us. God has chosen Abraham, not Abraham chose Jehovah, God. So he formed the nation. And then he's continuing from 5 to 7, how he freed the nation. He's talking about they were captives in Egypt and how he brought them out of that bondage. They purposely went in that direction, and God has gone and brought them back. The next verse you can see, he brought them through the Red Sea. The Red Sea turned out to be a place of protection for the people of Israel and a burial ground for Egyptians. How well I have brought you. I have freed you as a nation I have freed you and brought you out of that bondage. And the same thing when we look at ourselves, God has taken us out of that bondage. When He chose us, He helped us to make ourselves free from the bondage. So you can see a very good comparison, close comparison, and how God has formed the nation and freed them from the bondage. And the third point we see, God also fought for the nation. Now, the promised land was given, they have crossed the river Jordan. It was not a walk in the park for them. They need to fight. I think there are 15 kingdoms were there. They need to claim everything as God has given. Now here God is telling them a very clear instructions, as you can see in these the first 13 verses. The word I been used many times. I brought you to the land of the Amorites who lived east of Jordan. And then you can see, I destroyed them from before you. So God is speaking through Joshua. So that's why it's coming as I, even though Joshua is speaking, but God is speaking through Joshua. So he's telling, I have freed you. Now I fought for your nation. You didn't fight. You went through the Jericho 7 times. I made it happen and to win. And there are so many other people who were there, Amorites, Perizzites, Canaanites, Hittites. So many nations were there. So many kingdoms were there. But in the last verse, you can see it. But I gave them into your hands. I gave them into your hands. It's not you. It's not your mighty power, but I gave them into your hands. For us to understand, this is the clear indication for us to understand in our lives that's God's grace. They don't deserve that land. They don't deserve that place, but God in His grace and in His mercy went and fought for them and gave them the land. Same way, we go through difficult times, but God in His grace continued to protect us, continued to guide us. So here this passage, this particular portion, God fought for the nation, as we see in verses 8 to 13, clearly shows God's grace. Now let's look back in our lives. A year and a half ago, we have no idea what's going to happen. We are going through a global pandemic. And now we look back and see how wonderfully God has brought us through these difficult times. Not only that, from the time we have accepted Christ till now, when we look back, I don't know about you, but I can look at myself. I see how gracefully God has forgave all the iniquities that I have done and blessed me this far. I'm sure you can tell the same thing. So this is what Joshua is trying to tell them, that God is faithful. He redeemed us, and He had sustained us, and He had protected us. That's a message here. Now He had given the whole rundown of what has happened so that they could understand. Sometimes we don't understand how God has blessed us, because we only worrying about something that is very trivial. But we didn't have a time, or don't have a time to sit and look back and see how God has blessed me this far, or how God has blessed you this far. So this is the whole exercise that Joshua is doing. God is faithful. And He didn't drop a single promise down. When God blessed Abraham and told that 4th generation, you will be in the promised land, here you are 4th generation, you are in this land. So He's giving all this account. So that is the first part of His message. The second part of His message is now freedom of choice. You have a choice to make. You have, if the choice, whatever choice you are making, there is a cost to pay. And if you, once you made the choice, the covenant is us. So let's renew our covenant. Let's renew the covenant that God has given to Abraham. So let's look at what's the choice. This is a very powerful message. I'm sure most of you know verse 15. Let's do verse 14 first. Very familiar verse. So verse 14, now, when he's starting with now, means he's given the whole account of God's faithfulness. Now that you know that, now based on that, I'm asking you, fear the Lord and serve him with all faithfulness. A faithful God, let us serve him faithfully. To do that, throw away God's your ancestors worship beyond the Euphrates River. So he's talking about Abraham's parents who were worshiping pagans. And he see that same worship pattern is still, some people are still following that. So throw that away. And also people had seen what Egyptians have done, and they brought the same practice in their life too. When they were leaving the country, they brought those little things as ornaments, and they continue to worship those. So you have to, if you want to fear God, you need to throw away everything. I will maybe say that little later. So that is what the choice that we had to make. Either we can't serve both masters. That is the point he's making here. Verse 15. And then he is telling what choice that he had made. But if serving the Lord seems undesirable to you, you need to choose which one, whom you want to serve. It's very important for us to know that all human beings are created to worship. We are giving our worship to something. Either we worship the true God, or we may worship something else. We all have some passion in our life that becomes our idol. It may not be another idol, physical idol. It could be money. It could be our job. It could be something else that substitute where we can put God. So that is what he's trying to say. You have to, if you can't worship the Lord, the God who brought you all the way from bondage to this freedom, then decide whom you want to worship. So he's giving some options. Whether the gods your ancestors served beyond the Euphrates, that is Abraham's ancestors, they worshipped, you want to worship that God, that's another option, one option for you. Or the God of the Amorites. Now here he is making a very good point. The land that they were living right now, where the people worship the God of Amorites. So understand, if you worship the Amorites, that those gods, whatever the gods the Amorites worshipped, didn't save them. When we fought, they were all scattered, they're gone, they're no more. So do you want to worship the God, the failing God? Or you want to worship the God, a living God? So here's the choice. And then he's making a bold statement. I'm sure this has been in many homes, framed somewhere. We have too, in the same verse, framed in my house. But as for me and my house, we will serve the Lord. So he is telling, you make your own choice. God has given the freedom of choice. But I am telling you, I am serving the Lord, the Jehovah God, the God who redeemed us, the God who gave us victory on everything. And that is the God I am serving. Not only that, my household too will serve. It's very important. Some of us are parents here. It's very important when we serve God. Our children will look at us and they see how successful, how beautifully God has blessed my parents, so that we need to serve this God. So that is a bold statement Joshua was making. Not only me, my family will serve God. Now, this is the choice that we have to make. What is the parallel that we see? We see so many other things that can be God for us. And we have seen, if we see God is our, money is our God. We see so many people, they put emphasis on their money. And we see the results of what's happening in their lives too. So similar to what the people of Amorites, they followed certain gods, but that God didn't safeguard them. They only been destroyed. So what is the choice that we are going to make? Are we going to make Jehovah, our God, being our Lord, or are we going to make some other choice? So, but any choices comes with a cost. So he's now explaining to them that is a cost to pay. So if you follow two masters, you're going to have a problem. That's what he's saying in verse 19 to 20. So before that, I didn't read that. Verses 16 to 18 that was read by Prashant. He is telling, so the people were saying in between that verses, we are going to follow the Jehovah God. We understand the faithfulness of our God and we are going to follow. But Joshua is telling them, I understand what you're saying, but you can't follow two masters. If you follow two masters, you are basically going into major trouble. You're not going to get anything out of this. This God won't be there to safeguard you. This God won't be there to take you to the promised land. For us, that is heaven. You're going to lose out everything. So there is a cost. You got to put other foreign gods away and follow God sincerely. You have to follow him. So that is the cost. Leave the things that is not going to help you and cleave to the Lord who will help you throughout your life. Not just the past, but in the future as well. So that is a choice. So there is a cost. And once you have made the decision, then we can renew the covenant that God has given that covenant to Abraham. And verses 21 and 24, we can see the people said to Joshua, after listening all of them, no, we will serve the Lord. They made the decision. Then Joshua said, you are witness against yourself that you have chosen to serve the Lord. Yes, we are the witness, they replied. They said, make sure you're not playing with fire. Make sure you're not following two masters. You are the witness. And now Joshua said, throw away all the foreign gods that are among you and yield your hearts to the Lord, the God of Israel. Leave everything away. And the people said to Joshua, we will serve the Lord, our God, and obey him. If you read the next verse, verse 25, what Joshua did, he took a stone and on that day Joshua made a covenant for the people, and there at Shechem reaffirmed for them decrees and laws. Go to next verse. And Joshua recorded all these things. Then he took a large stone and set it up there under the oak near the holy place of the Lord. So he took a big stone. No, that's fine. Verse 26. Go back. He put a big stone and put it under a tree, a big tree, as a monument. So whenever you see this big stone, the large stone, it says, you remember the covenant that you had with God. Now we don't need to go to this oak tree. We have another tree that was on Calvary. God has made a covenant with you and me. He brought his son to this world. He died for us and is making a covenant with us that if you follow Christ, he will take care of you and me. He will protect me, you and me. He will safeguard you and me until he takes us to the promised land that is heaven. And that's what we have read in Psalms 105, verse 8. We can be rest assured. He remembers his covenant forever. The promise he made for 1,000 generations. God will not forget you. Sometimes we feel like God has forgotten us. Sometimes we feel like, where is God in all these things that's happening? Same thing the Israelites wondered, thought about that. 40 years they were in the wilderness too. They thought about that. But God has fulfilled every single promises that he had given to the people of Israel. And God has given the same promise to you and me on the tree of Calvary, where he made that covenant. There's a big comparison between the first covenant and the second covenant. The first covenant, when God made the covenant with Abraham, there was a sacrifice made, bloodshed happened to seal the covenant between God and Abraham. When in the New Testament we see, when God made that covenant between you and me, he shed his own son's blood to seal that covenant. That covenant cannot be shaken. The covenant will remain forever. And God will never forget. Generations, not only it stops with us, is continue. That covenant will continue. We can be rest assured. Let's not wander away. Let's always ask God, God, help us, Father, to obey you, to follow what you want us to do. And may this day, as we are seeing some light at the end of the tunnel on this pandemic, let us understand, let us make the decision and ask God to help us to continue to be faithful to the faithful God who had brought us this far, and he will take us through. There's no shadow of doubt for you and me, because he had done it in the past. He had done to our forefathers, and he is faithful God. He will do it for you and me and for our next generation. Let us bow our heads and ask God to help us. Father, Lord, what a beautiful message we heard from Joshua, the life of Israelites. You have been so faithful to them. From the time you picked up or chosen Abraham, all the way you brought them to the promised land. Not a single promise that you have given were dropped or changed or modified. Father, Lord, we look up the tree in Calvary. You made the covenant to bring us close to you, to take the iniquities out by shedding your own son's blood, and made the covenant with us that you will be our God. Heavenly Father, you help us, Father, to make that decision, to follow you. If hearing here first time, never accepted Christ, maybe this is a time for us to accept you, Father, as our Heavenly Father, because you will take care of us. And many of us, like the people of Israel, who've wandered away, and we see your faithfulness, Father. Father, Lord, you help us to rededicate the covenant that you have given to us. And help us, Father, to follow you. And Father, Lord, give us the boldness to proclaim like the way Joshua proclaimed, as for me and my household, we will serve you, Lord. You continue to guide us and strengthen us. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Thanks, Ravi Uncle. It's a good reminder